Justin has spent the last 30 years in the Salt Lake City, Utah area building early-stage high-tech companies across a variety of industries. His experience spans everything from food safety and healthcare to predictive analytics and AI. He has extensive experience in building businesses, developing business plans, securing financing, and forming strategic relationships. Please welcome Mr. Justin Riegel.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for coming. I'm so excited to be here. Kind of move away from that mic. As Joan said, spent the last 30 years building technology companies in the Salt Lake area. Hopefully that'll do it. And love what I do. I'm going to go micless in about 1 second. We spent a bunch of time figuring that out. I don't know where that's coming from, Jonah, but I hate to say this, but maybe if I get clear on the other side away from the podium. Is that any better? It's really loud to me. Is it just right for you or is it too loud? Okay. Anyway, going to be chirpy apparently. All right, that one did it. I prefer it, frankly, if you can hear me. I think that helped. Thank you. Anyway, I'm excited to be here for a couple of reasons. I love being around you. I love hanging out with young adults. I love the optimism. I love the excitement. I love the hope. I love the zeal. I love the energy. I miss it in my life. I'm getting older and miss it. But I love looking into the future, and I get really excited about what I think can happen in your lives, what's happening in the world, and I'm really excited to be here. And I love business. I'm an addict and can't get enough. And I think it's really, really valuable, and I want to talk more about that. Before I do, I want to introduce real quick my wife, Julie, raise your hand, and my son, Jake. This is my youngest son. Thanks for coming. You have no idea what a sacrifice this is for my wife. Sitting through meetings like this is like putting a sliver in her eye, so you're very kind, love. Thanks for coming. But we came to Hawaii in February trying to figure out some kind of a service mission we could fill given our family situation, which is a little bit different than normal. And so I've been trying to find ways to serve here around the campus and in the world of entrepreneurship. And my wife is an artist, and so in her mind, her mission is making sure everyone has a picture of the Savior in their home. It's what she loves, it's what she does, and she brought some in the back. They're free. If you see a picture there and you don't have one, or even if you do and you want one, please take one. They're free. Anyway, I've so much of this to me just kind of commingles with the gospel. Our lives, making a living, trying to make money, trying to pay our bills. There's so many priorities coming at us, but there are so many pieces of this that kind of overlay each other for me. I've spent my life, my career, trying to figure some of that out. Are we all familiar with the scripture in D&C 130, verse 20? There is a law irrevocably decreed in heaven, upon which, before the foundation of the world, upon which all blessings are predicated. Early in my life, I thought, I wonder if that has anything to do with money. I wonder if that has anything to do with business. I wonder if there's laws that govern the making of money and different laws that apply to the accumulation of wealth, because I don't think those are the same thing. I wonder if making a bad idea will get a bad outcome. Is that what that means? Because it means it to me. If there's a law irrevocably decreed, and I'm disobedient to that law, then the outcome should be pretty certain, right? So if I make bad decisions, I should expect bad outcomes. I probably don't want to make a career out of hope being my business strategy, right? If I just try to be good and I spend more than I make, pretty sure the outcome's bad, right? So I do believe that making good decisions more often than not leads to good outcomes. Making bad decisions, business-wise, personally, financially, leads to bad outcomes. I believe that's true. So part of what we need to do is get better at making decisions in my mind. So the thing I love about competitions like this, and I'm extremely competitive and I hate to lose. I can just tell you that. That's kind of a thing for me. So if I were in this contest, I would want to win it. But I wouldn't care about the prize. I just want to win it because I want to beat all of you. That's my sickness that I have to deal with, right? But I also just want to win. And I really do hate to lose. And so being competitive is okay. I don't think there's a problem with that. But what I love is creating something. I think it's impossible for us to go achieve something that our mind has yet to be able to conceive. So fortunately in my life early, I got exposed to some things that were very different than what I was doing at the time. I started my career selling life insurance and doing investments, became a financial planner, did that for 11 years, really enjoyed it. But along the way, I ran into some guys who were building businesses for a living. And I realized that was possible, because before that moment, I didn't know that was even possible. And my vision was expanded a little bit. So I believe the value of being in this competition for all of you is not whether or not you win the prize. I hope that your vision's expanded a little bit, and maybe you leave this experience saying, I could do something different than what I thought I might have to do. I had a conversation with my dad when I was probably your age and talking about what I want to do for work. And he said, all I can tell you is you're going to trade the next 40 years of your life for something. You're going to give up family. You're going to give up the things you love, the things that are fun, your vacation, your playtime. You're going to trade that for something that we call a career. And he was older in life at this point. And he said, the only thing I can tell you is 40 years from now, when you get to the end of that, if all you got out of that experience was a paycheck, you're going to be really disappointed. And that has governed, I can tell you, much of the decision-making process I've lived with through my life and my career. At the end of the day, I won't know if I won or lost financially, probably till the very last deal's done or I die, which will probably be the same time, because I can't stop. But I don't care, because I can tell you the experience I've had has been amazing. I've done business on virtually every continent. That's not fair. In Asia, Latin America, Europe, the United States. I've built businesses. I've raised capital. I've had an amazing experience. I have won occasionally. I have lost a lot. So that's one of the things I want to talk about. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, it's very rare to win every time. Not even sports people do it, right? The best athletes in the world don't do it. So if you're going to build one business in your life, you better win, because it's the only opportunity you're going to get. But it's really hard to win 100% of the time. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you kind of have to have an attitude of being willing to take a risk and being willing to take a loss. If you try and you lose, that doesn't mean you failed and it's over and you should go to something else because you're a loser. It means it was a bad idea, it didn't work, market timing didn't work out, things out of your control might not have worked. But that's part of the process for everybody that's in this space. So one of the real valuable pieces of this, in my opinion, for you, is learning how to analyze a business opportunity. Some people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to go start a business. Some never want to start a business and end up starting a business because their life changed. So some choose it, some by circumstance may be forced into it. But the skill you'll learn by doing this will last a lifetime. And I'm not talking about the competition. I'm talking about underlying this deck. So the competition, you're going to put together a deck and you're going to give it to them, right? Underlying this deck, you're going to build a business plan. And a business plan is really simple. It is basically you taking an idea and running it through a process that will require you to ask every question that needs to be asked to make that business work. Figuring out every variable, every possible risk, everything that you're going to have to know, and then answering those questions. And in the process of doing that, you'll find out if that idea is good or bad. As I'm doing some of the mentoring sessions, I'll have students come in and say, is this a good idea or bad? I said, I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, if you put it through this process, we'll know by the end. It's either going to make money or it's not going to make money. And we're going to have to make assumptions, but we can make educated assumptions if we do a little research. Right? If we do diligence, we can make educated assumptions. And the more educated we get and the better the assumptions are, the more likely we'll have the right outcome. What we don't want to do, though, is spend 5 years and lots and lots of money. I don't care where you are in the world, lots and lots of money, and then be wrong. If we're going to be wrong, let's spend 90 days, do a really deep diligence dive on the business plan, and then stop and save the money and save the time that we could have lost if it was a bad idea and we pressed it for 2 more years. Excuse me. I've had a couple of my kids want to be entrepreneurial. I had a daughter come to me and say, I want to, here's a good value proposition discussion. I want to build a business. My wife is a great cook, and she makes amazing desserts. And my daughter said, I want to build a business around taking mom's dessert recipes and selling them, or actually the product. Real butter, real cream, real, whatever it is. I said, that's a really cool idea. Why don't you build a business plan? I'll help you, but I won't do it for you. And let's find out if it's a good idea. And she went through it, and it took her several months, and she got bored and did something else, and she came back and did it a while. She finally got to the end of the process, and she said, I don't think this will ever work. I said, I don't either. I agree. The cost of the product is too high. You'll never sell it and make a decent margin, at least not in quantity. So she decided not to do it. She felt like she'd wasted some time. I said, I don't think so. You learned a very valuable lesson, and you saved us a lot of money and a lot of time had we just gone down the road and started building stuff. So a business plan is nothing more than putting a thought or an idea through a process by which the outcome will tell you whether it's a good idea or not. And then you're going to take a summary of that, put it in a deck, and submit it for its competition. Does that make sense? That's all we're talking about. One of the key pieces of building a business is what we call a value proposition. A value proposition is really simple. It's what you're going to do, what you're going to sell, what service you're going to provide, and what makes it different. What are the features, what are the benefits, and why is it different? If you're going to start a business in a marketplace that's full, and you don't have a difference, if you don't have some differentiator, why will people buy it? So the bigger the value proposition and the bigger the barrier to protect your value proposition, the better the opportunity. It seems pretty simple, right? Now, there are exceptions to every rule. I've got some guys I know in Salt Lake. They started a business. They came and said, we want to start a sock business. We want to build high-end socks. We want to compete directly with Nike and Under Armour and Adidas. And I said, that's the stupidest idea I ever heard. And then they built a company called Stance. It's a really big sock company with really cool socks. But they got really refined on value proposition. It's going to be really high-end. It's going to be really cool, very trendy. It's about your personality and you building what you want. All the stars are going to want to wear it. All the athletes are going to want to wear it. They signed a deal with the NBA. So it can be done, but it's expensive, takes a lot of capital, and you better be really, really refined on what your message is to compete there. So are there exceptions? Absolutely. But by rule, the more your value proposition is different or significant enough that you have real difference between you and your competitors, or there are no competitors, the better the odds are for success. So, value proposition, we're really talking about your value, your benefits, your features, your difference between you and anything else in the space. Why do people want to buy your product or buy your service? We're going to go through, too, in a couple of minutes, a bunch of examples, and we'll just talk through those. And while we're doing that, by the way, let's have a really interactive discussion. So any questions you have, feel free to ask, and we'll go through those. Techniques for understanding customer pain points and desires. For me, when we look at value propositions, or frankly, back up just a little bit higher, when we look at starting a business, if I were sitting down with you and say, let's start a business, what do we want to do? I would be looking at these types of things. There's really 4 areas I would consider to build a business. I want to fill a gap. What I mean by fill a gap is that no one does it. There is a hole in the marketplace. There's a need for a product or service that no one's doing, and we just thought of it, and it's the coolest thing ever. And if I can do that, I have a really big differentiator. I have a really clear value proposition. I can go to my customers, I can start to market, and I can say, we do this, no one else does it, and we think you need it. And if you're right, they'll buy it. The second one is a barrier to entry, right? If I have an idea and I've patented it, I have intellectual property protection around it, others can come, it doesn't matter. I have a barrier to entry for all of my competitors. That gives you a distinct advantage as well. Stance, if I can build it better, faster, cheaper, or I can do it more efficiently than you do it, you can also build a business there. It's a little more competitive there. You better be ready to go. It's all about footprint in the marketplace as fast as you can go. But it gets done. That's one of the ways we would look at it. Is there something that's being done that I can do better, faster, cheaper, or be more efficient at, or be, any way possible beat my competition? That's a value proposition, or it could be the basis of your value proposition. Lastly, disruption, right? There are things I live with every day that drive me crazy. Processes I have to go through. When I call a government office and I sit on hold, when I have to go to get a driver's license renewed, you can think of all the things that drive you nuts. You figure out how to fix one of those or remove the pain from one of those processes, that's a business idea. If you can disrupt what's currently going on, change it significantly, get it more efficient, get it faster, cheaper, same thing at that point. If I can change it and disrupt what's happening, that's a really big foundational piece for a value proposition. Aligning your proposition with customer needs is everything we just talked about, right? As you have an idea, I'll come to you one second. As you have an idea, you're going to figure out really quickly who's going to buy that and how you're going to sell it to them. And if you can get something in those 4 categories, it's going to be a much easier transaction and a much easier convincing of that customer than if you can't. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you just give an example for the barrier to enter, like any example regarding that?
Of which one?
For the barrier to enter.
So can I give a barrier to entry for the IP, the intellectual property? Is that the right one? So we built a business in 2011 that was getting into the predictive analytics, machine learning, and AI space. And we filed a patent around that. At the time, Google, I couldn't think of the name. Google had a patent that said if you automate the building, this is going to sound a little technical, I apologize. If you automate the building of a single learning machine, a single predictive model using a single learning machine, Google had a patent that owned that space. We went in and patented a piece of the space that said if you build 1 plus n number of predictive models using n plus 1 number of learning machines, we owned that. We got that patent issued in 2015. So anyone coming into the predictive analytics AI space, if they tried to automate the building of predictive models using machine learning, and they built more than one model, which we would call an ensemble of models, using more than one machine, like maybe they used a neural network and a Bayesian classification model, or machine, if they use those 2 machines to build more than one model, they breached our patent. I'm suing them. Right, so by intellectual property protection, I can say, you can't go here, I will sue you. Does that make sense? That's what I'm talking about. Key components to a value proposition. So when you think about your value proposition, we've talked through most of it at this point, but it really is about, is there a problem or need I'm solving? Be really clear about what that is, and what's my solution to it. We're going to talk a lot more here as we get into the examples about clear and concise statements, or how you represent that value proposition to your customer. This is important, at least in my world it is. I've had several students come to me already and say, I really care about people. I want to do something that's good for the world. I want to build a business, maybe even a nonprofit around helping people, especially in my country, because there's a lot of need. I think that's a worthy goal. So to start with, let me say that is a worthy goal. However, if you're going to build a business, you have 2 choices. You're going to build a for-profit business or a not-for-profit business. So a non-profit business. If you're going to build a for-profit business, your core business value proposition better be drive revenue somehow. Because if all you do is get caught up in your social intent and you can't drive revenue, you're going to kill your business and then you can't help anybody. It would be far better to just do something that drives revenue and profit, take your profit and be social. So you can't kill your business by getting your goals misaligned and going down the wrong direction, right? So however you're going to make a social impact, underlying that better be something that continuously drives revenue and produces profit. Otherwise, you can't help anybody, including yourself. So don't get misaligned in your goals. If you want to build a not-for-profit, an NGO, I think that's awesome. But now you don't ever drive revenue. So don't not do it. It's a great goal. Just know that it's even more difficult, in my opinion, than building a business. I have been in that space. I've participated in some. I've helped build a couple. And in my opinion, now this is a really personal opinion, there's nothing harder than going back to the same donor year after year for the same cause. That is tough. It is tough to raise money. You can raise money once, easy. I just need one check and I'm going to solve this really big problem. But if you go to me every year or anybody else year after year and I'm solving the same problem, it doesn't look like you're making much progress, that's a hard road. So worthy goal, really hard road, but if you think you have access to capital, I think it's awesome. Any questions so far before I jump into examples? Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to what you said about having IP, where and how much does it cost?
So, really good question. If you want to try to protect something with intellectual property, a patent or a trademark or copyright, something like that, what does it cost? It depends on what you're trying to do. If you have an idea or a concept in your head that you want to try to patent, you could probably have that conversation with an attorney and get a provisional patent filed for $2,000. If you really decide you're serious and you've got something valuable and you're going to go down the road, we've spent millions of dollars in patenting over the years, so it can get really expensive. And then that's not the bad news, that's the good news. The bad news is if somebody violates it and you actually have to litigate that patent, well, then it gets really expensive. So it is a barrier to entry, but it's not like all powerful. And frankly, to be perfectly candid with you, we were little businesses doing business with really big businesses, some of the biggest companies in the world. And we had patents, and they said, we frankly don't care. We're going to do it anyway, and just sue us. Right? By the time you finish that law, first of all, we don't think you can finish it. You'll go out of business first. Secondly, it'll take 20 years, and we'll pay you whatever you win, and it'll be nothing compared to what we made off your patent over the years. So still, maybe not a great barrier, but it's better than nothing. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead. You have another one? Yeah, I would. It won't stop the Eli Lillys of the world or the Googles of the world, but it'll stop all the middle guys from competing with you. Anybody else? Let's talk about some examples. I've thought through some examples. I hope some of it's relevant to you. Feel free to ask questions as we go through it. This is one that just showed up on my LinkedIn. A guy posted on my LinkedIn. Can you see that picture at all? It's a woman decorating a front porch of a house with Halloween decorations. She started this business a couple of years ago. This guy who posted it is going to do a little interview with her on his podcast. This woman started this little business. She does this for people, consumers, neighbors, whoever. Last year she did 900 jobs. She charges $300 to $2,000 a job. She makes over $1 million a year putting Halloween decorations on people's porches. She has 10 drivers, 15 delivery people, and a handful of warehouse staff. Good idea or bad idea? If somebody came to you and said, I want to decorate front porches with Halloween decorations, I know what I would have said. But let's think about it a minute. What's the value proposition here? What's the need? Convenience. I have a holiday where little kids come to my door, at least in the United States. Lots of little kids come to my door. And frankly, here it's a big deal. Hawaii is a big Halloween holiday, right? Lots of people come. Adults are coming. I want my porch to be cool. I want it to make noise. I want it to have smoke. I want it to have sound. All of a sudden, it's an interesting market, right? What's their value proposition? What's their differentiators? Convenience. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go buy it. I don't have to take any time. I don't have to haul it. I don't have to clean it up. I literally don't have to do anything. You come in here, you do that for me. It looks like that, and I write a check for $300. Sounds reasonable. Thoughts? Questions?
There's no other competitors as well.
You know what? I'm guessing there's competitors at this point. There will be tomorrow after that guy has his podcast, I'll bet. There's no barrier to entry there, right? Anybody could do that. When I saw it, I thought of another one, you know, in St. George, where we moved from, and all over the United States, in Hawaii. I don't know about the rest of the world. I'm sure it's true. Christmas is a big holiday to decorate, right? People will come to homes and put up Christmas lights for you. They'll bring the lights, they'll sell you the lights, you store the lights, so you do have a storage problem, but they'll come, they'll sell you the lights, they'll put them up, they'll do everything for you, and then when they take them, they'll come take them down, and you put it in your garage. And for a small one-level house, they'll do that for $4,000 or $5,000. For a two-story house, it's pretty good size, it'll cost you $10,000. Pretty interesting business model. So one of my points here is there are a lot of ways to make money. Some I would never dream of when I hear them. So don't just dismiss it because it seems too simple, right? The best idea in the world, in my opinion, is simple. ShareTown, this is a buddy of mine in St. George, good friend. He came to me about 6 years ago, said, I'm building this business. By the way, they tried to build a first business, it didn't work. It killed the market kind of moved on him, they had nothing, it was dying. He raised a little bit more capital, went to his investors, he had a couple investor friends and said, give me a little more money, I'm going to do a pivot. That means I'm going to change direction. I'm going to create a new business strategy. And after thinking through it for a bit, he came up with this really cool idea. At the time, Purple Mattresses was just coming out big. Do you know who Purple Mattress is? Have you ever heard that name? They sell a memory foam mattress. So you get it in a box. It's about, depending on the size, you buy a king size, it's going to be like 8 feet by probably 2.5 feet, cardboard box. And it's about 60 pounds, probably, maybe 70 pounds. And it's a big old thick, maybe 8-inch thick memory foam mattress. It's wrapped. It's tight like a tube. And when you cut that open, it's the size of a king size mattress and impossible to deal with. And you put that on your bed and you sleep on it. And if you don't like it, Purple's deal was you buy this mattress, and by the way, that mattress is $4 or $5 grand. You buy that mattress, you don't like it, you can try it for 180 days. And if you don't like it, they'll take it back. You just call them, they'll give your money back. Interestingly enough, when you call them and say, I don't want it, come get it, they'll say, you know what, we'll give your money back, you do whatever you want with it. Take it to DI, start a fire, we don't care, we're not coming. The reason is they had no possible way to pick that mattress up. They didn't have infrastructure to pick it up, they didn't have equipment to pick it up, it's impossible to pick up. It is a pain in the butt to get off your bed and move out of the house. And as a customer, you don't want it laying in your driveway. I mean, what are you going to do? So this guy thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start picking up those mattresses. So he called Purple and said, you care if I pick those mattresses up? I'll tell them I'm working for you. You get all of the recognition of being the company who's kind enough to come get that off their porch, but I'll go get it, but I get to keep it. And I get to resell it on any one of the marketplaces locally, and I get to keep the money. And they said, absolutely. If you would do that, that would be the coolest thing in the world, because we don't have to deal with it still. So he started building a business that today we would call reverse logistics, of picking up large items that the company that sold it to you has no ability to pick up. And yet they will refund your money and say, get rid of it yourself, it's your problem now. And just keeping the money. That's what that was his concept. Really simple business plan. Great set of differentiators. The company has a problem they cannot solve. Customer has a problem they cannot solve. They got a stinking piece of garbage in their room they don't want and literally can't get rid of. And the company doesn't want to come get it. So he'll go pick it up, throw it in a pickup truck, take it home to his garage, bought a little equipment, rewrapped it, re-rolled it, and then sold it on Craigslist or something like that for $600. He did that for about a year and thought, that's kind of cool. He decided to expand, so he started hiring people, contractors, not employees, around the country. Said, you got to have your own truck, you go pick it up, and if you pick it up, you get $250. All you got to do is pick it up, take it to this place, and drop it off, you get $250. He'll have somebody wrap it, and he'll sell it for $600 or $800, and he gets the rest. So that's his idea. Started out really simple. When he came and talked to me, I thought, this is one of the coolest ideas I've ever heard. I love it. I'm going to just show you a couple slides. I don't want to talk through all these. Turned out to be a really complicated business. Really complicated. Because as he grew, other mattress companies wanted to come, and then he wanted to offer more value. So they started wanting money. Once they realized there's a bunch of money in this thing, they wanted to get paid for their mattress as he picks it up. So he said, I'll pick it up and pay you part of it, but I get part of it. And they negotiated a deal. Then he had 3 or 4 other mattress companies do it. And at the end of the day, he built a software program that the customer could go into an app and say, I don't want this product, come get it. It will notify the store. The store can actually give the customer access to their portal and deal with them right there. And they deal with him on an app. So he's built this whole software thing across, combining all of them. All kinds of manufacturers of products, all kinds of customers. He's got, I'll just jump to it, 1,700 reps across the country. Independent contractors who have a truck and will pick something up. And those guys are making money because they're picking a bunch of stuff up now. And now he's dealing with all kinds of big products. And just as kind of a summary, I think he said he's going to do, this is important. This idea got complicated. It was a really simple, great idea. He managed to work through the complications, but this process of building this business took him 12 years. This is not a 2-year process, right? This is sometimes the longest one I've been in, the longest deal I was in was 15 years. I started as a young man, I finished as an old man. So it is a commitment of time, right? He told me they're going to do $44 million this year in revenue. That's a really cool business. Started with a pickup truck, and him and his wife picking up mattresses. I started thinking, somebody I had a conversation with in the last 7 months, I apologize, if it's one of you, raise your hand. Was this you, Charlie? Were we talking about pork in the Philippines?
No, not me.
Okay. Somebody, I was talking about pork, and I started to think about that and said, well, you know what, if I was in the Philippines, I might want to build a pork business. I spent the last 20 years working in food safety. I might want to build a pork business. What would that look like? What if I thought, I'm going to go buy 12 pregnant sow pigs, and I'm going to give them to 12 different families, and I'm going to say, listen, I'll give you this pig, and I'm going to give you enough money to feed it for a year. But when it has a litter, every time it has a litter, you're going to give me 20% of the litter. So you can keep 80%, I'll keep 20. Now the average litter's 11 to 14 piglets. Big, 18 to 20. I'm going to assume you get 10. I want 2 piglets out of every litter. This pig can have a litter every 115 days. I'm going to get 3 litters a year. On average, we'll say 2.5. So I'll buy you a pig. I'll feed it for a year. Every time that pig has piglets, you're going to give me 2 piglets, or 20% of whatever the yield is. What does that look like if I took 12 pigs and did that? What's the differentiator? I don't have any competition. No one's giving away pigs, right? Lots of people want to make more money, have better access to better food or cheaper food, but they can't afford to get started because they can't afford a pig. So I'll give them a pig and I'll feed it for a year for them. I'm going to do that with 12 people. I apologize, that's too small to read. I threw together some financials. This is not done. This would take me, another 90 days to get through. But really simply put, the assumptions are up there, right? I'm going to do 12 pigs. The average pig in the Philippines, pregnant pig is $346 US. It's probably overstated. To feed it for a year is going to cost me $100. So my total investment is going to be $5,300. Gestation 3.75 months. Average litters per year 2.5. Litter size 10. Number of bless you. 45%. So I'm assuming 45% of the population of every litter is going to be female, because I only want the females. The rest I don't need, right? Because I want to give those away to other people and grow my business. Number of male piglets, 55%. Average loss, 20%. So I'm assuming 20% of every litter dies, right? That's just going to happen. And then percent to the partner, to me, to whoever the partner is. I'm taking 20% of every litter. So those are my assumptions, real simple assumptions. Value pigs at weaning. So by the way, I don't want to touch these pigs. I don't want to have to feed them one day. So I'm giving the sow out the day I buy it, and she's giving me, or whoever I gave it to is going to give me back piglets at weaning, once they're weaned. The day they're weaned, they come to me. They weigh 6 kilograms. They're worth about $18 or whatever it was. $18. It cost, 170 Filipino dollars, whatever that is. And that's the math. So if I do that, year one, that's not going to work there, is it? Oh, it will work. So year one, I got 12 pigs, right? And at the end of the year, I'm going to have 48 pigs, basically. I'm only going to have 24 that are female. I'm going to have 26 that are boars. And I'm going to sell those every year. Anyway, you can go out here. This is kind of year 4. If I just did this to year 4, that year I would have 738 sows. Number in the program, 263, because some start to come off. They're only good for about 5 years. Every year I would sell 474 sows and 580 boars. Total number of pigs I'd be selling every year from then on. So basically the concept is this. I give out 12. The next year I have 45% of them female. I give those out. I sell the males. The next year I now have 6 times whatever number I gave out. 45% are females. I give those out. I sell the males. I do that for 4 years. I'm making I'm making $19,000 a year and don't spend another dime. I just trade pigs at that point, right? If I wait to start selling until year 6, I'm making 150 grand. That's US dollars, right? But I've got cost, right? Because now I'm managing 5,700 pigs. But 5,700 pigs all having 3 litters of 10 and I'm getting 6 off each of those. That's a lot of pigs to manage. So again, my only intent, I'm not telling you this is a good idea. I'm just telling you that as I sat down and tried to think through an idea and throw a little understanding underneath it, a little foundational math to say, could this happen or not happen? There's ways to make money that are interesting, innovative. You can start pretty small. Questions at all? This is kind of a different perspective. This is like building a food safety company in the United States. This is one we did. So our value proposition was really simple. Foodborne illnesses are a massive problem globally. E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, Campylobacter, massive problems in the production of beef, swine, poultry. There are no solutions. At least in the United States, the way we slaughter animals, it is a mass slaughter system, and these are fecal organisms. They live in the intestinal system of these animals. So when you gut them, when you eviscerate them, they spread, and they're in the whole factory. They're in the process all the time. As a matter of fact, when a cow walks into a slaughter facility, when a steer walks into a slaughter facility in the United States, 99% of the time it has E. coli. It's in the manure on the outside of the cow. There are no new innovation models coming. There's no new products. We treat this problem with acid and chlorine, have for 100 years. There's no new solutions. So that's the problem. The other problem in the United States is no one was in the food safety business. This is 2015 we did this deal. At the time, there's chemical companies. And by the way, one chemical does a really good job of killing that bug, so I'll sell that chemical as a one-off product to food safety. But my real chemical, Dow Chemical, is not only in the food safety business. And then there's hard surface sanitation companies, soft surface sanitation companies, and they have products that might work, but it's not what they do, so they're not focused on solving the problem. They just have a product that might work. So that's the competition. So we said, we're going to build a wholly focused food safety company. It's all we're going to do. We're going to solve this problem. That's our value proposition, and we're going to bring new innovation to it. This is just more information about markets fragmented. These guys don't really do this for a living. They're throwing a product. Somebody might build a vaccine in their human health business, like Eli Lilly and Company or Novartis. They're building human vaccines. Might also work here, so they'll throw it over there, but it's not what they're doing. So that was our goal. So here's the value proposition. We're going to build a business that brings a broad new portfolio of food safety products, new innovation to the problem. We're going to bring analytics, data analytics, machine learning, predictive analytics to the problem. And we're going to bring a new innovation model to the problem. So we're going to change the way things are done. So this diagram basically says on the left, we're going to get a coalition of people together. We're going to work with industry and regulatory agencies and academia to solve this problem. So we created a coalition of Texas A&M University System, FDA, FSIS, that's Food Safety Inspection Services, that's the group that manages food here. And we said, let's all get together with a couple of these other ag schools, and let's figure out how to get new innovation in this process. Let's solve this problem. We'll take the lead on finding new innovation, that's our job. We'll look at how to manufacture it, we'll look at quality assurance, we'll look at pushing it down the regulatory path once we know it works. But we want you guys to help us prioritize what problem has to be solved first. What protocol design has to be done? So there's certain requirements to do this, right? Because I can only put certain things on that meat before you don't want to eat it anymore. We actually made it into a series, and now I forget the name, some mobster show. Gosh, I'm getting to a point where I can't remember. In that 2015 world, they made a joke in one of their episodes about somebody's putting viruses on our meat. That's what we did. We brought bacterial viruses as a new piece of innovation to kill E. coli in the process of slaughtering beef. That was one of the products we brought. Anyway, we wanted them to prioritize the problem, help us build protocol designs, and then talk about commercial testing. Because if you can't get FDA to allow you to put it into a facility, you can't get testing done. So we wanted them on our side to do that. On the bottom, we were working on manufacturing QA. We did the regulatory work. We did the access to the market stuff. We built the whole channel. So at the end, we could bring new innovation at a much faster pace. That's the goal. By the way, the other problem, I talk too fast, I know that. So if English is a second language to you and I'm talking way too fast, just raise your hand and remind me to slow down. Sorry. Does that make sense? The last piece there on the bottom is application system. Every time you bring a new innovation, you got to figure out how to put it on the animal. And that's one of the hardest challenges, and so we did that too, and we'll talk about that. So innovation criteria. To innovate a new product, you had to meet this criteria. This was set by that group. So we got the FDA involved, we got academia involved, we said, what are the minimum standards to bring a new piece of innovation? What does it have to do? It needs to be effective. We need to, at a minimum, reduce the bioload on that animal by 1 log. If it doesn't do that, it's not even worth talking about. It has to have a label-friendly, the product has to be label-friendly. If at the end of the day you go to the store and the label has to say, this was shot with radiation, nobody's buying it. It won't work. It has to be a label-friendly product. Worker safety has to be intact. We can't go in and kill people. One of the products we took to market is a bromine product. It's a bromine acid product. It was being delivered when we took it over. We bought or licensed that product. When we licensed it, it was being delivered in 50-gallon buckets. And by the way, it's not harmful in a solid, but to distribute it, you got to put it in water. And when you put it in water, one of the byproducts is a gas it releases. That gas will kill you. It's toxic. And they were mixing it by hand in facilities. As a result of that, Japan took it off. They had approved it as a registered product. They took it off because of that. So we had to rethink about how to apply that product. And then it can have no adverse effect on the organoleptics. So if it changes the smell, if it changes the taste, there was a product for a long time that came out that was actually irradiating the meat. They would spray it with radiation, so it would irradiate it, and it smelled like dirty socks. And they're like, yeah, that can't work. It's not gonna do it. Anyway, what does the customer want? That's the other side of that. We went through that and said, can we find a way to do this? I mentioned this. So we had to change the way products were applied. So we brought these viruses in and said, we're going to do this with bacterial viruses, all natural, organic, no problems with the environment or worker safety. We're eliminating harsh chemicals and antibiotics. This is good for everybody. We had to find a way to apply it. We built a shower system. So when the cattle come into a slaughter facility, they come off the truck and they're weighed, and that's how the grower gets paid, the farmer. After that, they walk into a series of corrals and pens and up to the slaughter facility, and we shower them. And we did a study to see if that worked or not. We did a study for 2 things. We wanted to prove that it was effective, and we wanted to prove that it didn't get on the meat. We could put it on the hide. When the hide was removed, none of it got to the carcass. So we could actually get it through FDA in a short period of time instead of 20 years. We were able to do that. We did a 60,000 head study as a second study. We did a first study that is a whole different story, but we got approval to do a 60,000 head study with Cargill Foods in LA, and we proved that we reduced E. coli going to the marketplace by 75%. So this is the bromine product. Instead of that 50-gallon drum, we redesigned the whole system. We patented that system, so IP protection. So it is a forklift that dumps a 2,200-pound bag inside of a double-jacketed stainless steel vat, sealed, then water comes in from the sides, then it mixes it to the right concentration, then it doses it and puts it into their water systems. Every major provider put it in their system, and it was patented. So now no one else can sell them product but us. Lastly, we brought analytics. So we walked them through, listen, there's lots of analytics. Descriptive will tell you what happened. I can tell you, diagnostic will tell you why it happened. But if you go with us, we'll take you up into that right corner and start talking about what might happen and when it might happen and how we can stop it or start it. I can make it happen or I can stop it from happening if I get this right. I can get into prescriptive analytics and saying, I think you're going to have an E. coli outbreak in this facility if you don't do something right now. We can see it coming. So that's what we sold them. Any questions? I think I'm done. Because, well, if you don't have questions, I'll do another one. But I've talked about a lot of different styles of value propositions, a lot of different types of businesses. I can give you more. We've got 10 or 15 minutes left. If you have questions about yours or any other things, I'd rather do that.
So in creating businesses, you always have to find like the easiest way to test it first, right? But what, for example, like this, what was like the simplest way to test if the product was viable?
So I went to the FDA, flew to Washington, D.C., went to the FDA and said, I want to test this product. And they said, there's no way. We don't know what it will do. We've not done anything with it before, these viruses. They said, if you put it in a facility, we will condemn the facility. So I went home. My dad lived on a little 5-acre piece of ground in Utah. We took 3 steers. We took our whole lab out there and we did a 3-head study. I took 3 animals and I swabbed them with E. coli L157, the jack-in-the-box strain from 30 years ago that killed a bunch of people. We swabbed them. We had one animal that was control. We had one with water treating it and one with our product treating it. And we created a data set. We did it in our backyard, literally. So we would swab E. coli. We would spray one with water. We would, do the other one with our product, and then we'd measure them. And we'd wait 2 hours to do it again. Right in the middle of the test, one of the steers started acting up. My dad went in, grabbed a .22 and shot him right in the middle of my test. But he was still, we needed to shoot him anyway because we had to skin him and we had to take the hides off. And so, a little morbid sounding, but yeah, we did a test right literally in the backyard. We created a test in the backyard. I took data from a 3-head study done in my backyard back to Washington, D.C., said, here's my data package. I skinned them. I tested the carcass. Nothing got across. Will you give me a chance to do it now? And they said, absolutely. That whole test cost me 1 day for 5 employees and 3 steers and a guy to skin them. We did it in a day. And that opened up a world it would take another discussion to talk about, but yeah.
Another question, completely unrelated. We were a bit shocked when you said how the patent for the AI thing that you filed for 2015. How could you predict that AI would be so big?
It's a really good question. So when I started my career,
What was the question?
I'm sorry, the question is, when I started an AI company in 2011, how did I know it was going to be big? I mentioned I spent the first 11 years of my career doing financial planning work, so very different than what I'm doing now. I ended up at a conference my company put on, and they brought in a guy from NYU, New York University, who was an economist. His name was Paul Zane Pilzer, and he wrote a book called Unlimited Wealth. And the premise of his book was that economic theory is flawed, and it's flawed because we didn't realize when it was created the impact that technological advancement would have on it, or everything else. And he basically went through the impact technology would have on industry, on politics, on education, on everything over the next, in his mind, 50 years. I was illiterate. All I did was turn on a computer to play a game of hearts with my friends to see who was buying lunch that day. That's how much experience I had with computers. I had staff who did that. I had admins who did that for me. But I left that meeting and thought, I have to make a change or I will not be able to compete. What I do for a living will be gone, the way I do it at least. Things will change, and I've got to adapt. And so I left that meeting and said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go figure out this whole technology space. And so I got a buddy of mine to leave his job. He's a technology guy, I'm not. We became partners and we built a dozen companies over the next 30 years. And our goal was to figure out where it was going and try to be on that front edge of it. And I'll come back and talk about that more because it matters. The first business we built was an internet service provider in '95. So back in 1995, when the internet was just being talked about, we built one of the first companies to provide internet service in the state of Utah, and we're one of the first companies to bring the internet to the state of Utah. We ended up selling that company in 1999, but the reason we did it, we went through the business model a bunch of times, looked at the value proposition, and I remember sitting around my kitchen table at midnight with my buddies saying, this thing will never make a profit. I don't know how it ever makes a profit. And we said, we're going to do it anyway because our goal here was to get educated in what's happening and be on the front edge, and the internet at the time was certainly the front edge. And secondly, we decided if the internet doesn't evolve into what we need it to be, if it's not going to become the thing, it will at least be close to it, and it will allow us to keep our thumb on the pulse and at least see where it goes, and we can follow it from there. And from that moment on, we looked for what we thought was the next emerging thing, and we tried to play there. I can tell you in hindsight, it's a really bad idea. Being early can be really, really awesome if you win. It's really expensive, it's really high risk, and more than often, you lose. You're too early, or it evolves behind you and it forks and goes a different direction. There's just so much and it's so fast that it's easy to get burned by being way out front. So if I were starting again, I'd be a little less out front. So we got lucky, basically, but we were trying to, those assumptions, make your best assumptions, best educated assumptions, that was our goal. Yeah.
So let's say you create this value proposition for your business. How would you then take that get people convinced that your business is
Really good question. So once you create this value proposition, how do you take that, either get started, or if it requires capital, find that capital, whether you borrow it, get it from a bank, or whether you find an investor to help you or a partner or somebody. Really good question. You build a business plan. The reason I love what you're about to go do is this is the foundational piece for everything. Even if you never want to run a business, even if you retire and are trying to manage your retirement fund, even if it's a little bit of money, you being able to understand whether the business you're thinking about, I don't care if it's AT&T or Verizon, if you can look at their financials or look at their model or read some reports and say, hey, these guys are going to do well over the next 5 years, that's meaningful to me. It's a business plan. So part of my last 30 years of experience, I sat on both sides of the table. I founded companies as the founder, CEO, and I raised money, so I was out talking to people about that. The last 25 years, have been an investor sitting on the other side of the table looking at the CEO and telling him why I didn't think it was worth as much as he did. So I've had to be on both sides of that experience a lot. What I learned, when we built the internet company, it was the first time in my life I built something with somebody else's money. I'd built a couple small things, invested in some small things, lost some stuff. It was the first time we tried to raise other people's money, and we went out and raised friends and family, just a couple of guys. And it worked great, and we returned capital to them 3 years later, 40% annual return year over year. It was a really decent deal. And I realized that the only difference between building a small business and a big business is capital. And if I have a good business plan, and I can put together the right executive team, I can raise capital. So we decided to raise a lot of capital instead of a little capital. So the way you get there, when I sit on the table as an investor, when I'm on that end of the table, I'm looking at a couple of things. I'm looking at the size of the opportunity. I'm looking at how easy it will be to actually execute that plan, and whether you guys sitting on the other side can execute it. And if you can convince somebody of that, there's, I think, just about anywhere in the world, maybe not every country, but most of the ones I know of, there's people or companies in that space that are looking for those kinds of opportunities. So that's how you do it. Any other questions? Charlie?
Yeah. With the difference between small and big business, what's the difference between the amount of hours spent and effort?
Really great question. That was the other learning. None. The amount of energy, the amount of risk, the amount of time to build a small business was not a lot different than the big business. It was just the outcome that changed, or the size of the opportunity that changed. So, at least in my world, right, I chose a very technical space. So even small businesses that are technical take time, lots of time. My experience is every business takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. Most successful business people I know are successful because they were stupid and wouldn't quit when they should have. They weren't smart enough to realize they were beaten, and over time, they figured it out somehow. But it requires years and serious perseverance and commitment and lots of stress, lots of risk. But it's not, I don't know, I hear people talk about people I know, like that guy's so lucky, he made that money so fast, and I'm like, I don't know anybody like that. I've never met them. I'm sure there's people who inherit money, but all the guys I know who've done really well have worked really hard for a long time. But that is a principle I think that's important, right? It didn't take more effort or energy to build a big business or a small one. Yeah.
Do you have a process for like identifying problems? Like for example, I had no idea like foodborne illness was like a problem. Like do you have a process of like looking for problems to solve?
Great question. I'm a finance guy, I'm a business guy, I'm not a science guy, so I had to become a student every time we did something and figure out what we're going to do. We looked at it and said, if we can understand the technology, the underlying core technology, understand the opportunity, the value proposition, understand what the product would look like, and build a financial model that we think would work, I can hire science guys. If I got a microbiologist who spent the last 50 years of his life figuring this thing out, I can hire a microbiologist that he can train. Right? I can execute on science all day long. So that's how we approached it. So once we started to do it, it turned into a machine that generates opportunities. They come to us. So we're kind of in a place now where people present us business plans constantly. And we look at them and say, yeah, no. Or yes, that's interesting. And so we now review them from that perspective. So what you'll find is there's a lot of people in the world with great ideas. You don't necessarily have to be the idea guy. And if you find someone who's an inventor, like this person is so focused on that part of their world, whatever science or it is that they do, you know, they spent 50 years. Unfortunately, most of the time they have social skill problems, right? They're really, really, really good at what they do, and they're not really good at much else. And it's hard for them to build a business. It's hard for them to raise money. It's hard for them to do a lot of things. And so those people are always looking for somebody to help them. And so we do that kind of thing. Those people get introduced to us all the time. Somebody who has a really interesting idea and doesn't know what to do or tried and couldn't do anything. So
Is that how you found the idea for the foodborne business? I can't remember the name of it.
it is. Yeah, we met a guy who spent 50 years trying to figure out how to commercialize bacterial viruses. He's a PhD, later in life, tried. I got introduced to him by a friend, and I sat there and thought, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. So yeah, that's how we got into that deal. Any other questions? I think we're going to move to a break. Are you taking the podium back here? You want me to do it?